Hi, I'm Valerie Engelhardt, and in this video I want to paint a flaky, buttery croissant. And so I've pulled out my Fabriano 1264 watercolor paper because it's an inexpensive student grade and I just want to do a quick and simple painting exercise using just 3 colors from my Winsor & Newton panned palette. And that palette is one of the first pans of paint I ever bought back when I was just getting into watercolor and wanted to invest in professional paint. So that set has a very special place for me. The color that I put down first is yellow ochre, and right now I'm adding some burnt sienna. At the very end, I'm going to use a little bit of burnt umber just for the deepest shadows, but right now I am just working with the yellow ochre and the burnt sienna. So I'm starting, and I'm doing a lot of this where I paint a shape of the croissant wet on dry using the yellow ochre, and then to give it a little bit of form, I go in and do the burnt sienna wet into wet, which is just as the name states, wet paint into a wet part of the paper. And when I'm dotting in that burnt sienna, I'm keeping it towards the edges of the shape that I essentially just drew with my brush. It is not important to put in any details, any of those lovely creases, because I'm actually going to go over this with some cling film to get those lovely flaky textures. And so right now it's just really important that I get an idea of color and get the basic shape down. Though honestly, you don't have to use cling film. The way it's going right now, if I were to let this dry just as it was, I could go over it with a second layer to put in detail and additional textures with dry brushing, and it would still look phenomenal. But cling film is one of my favorite ways to make texture, and it's just fun and easy, and I like to do it, so I'm going to do it. And the cling film I use is old. Look at how dirty it is. I will use the same cling film, also known as plastic wrap or saran wrap, over and over just because I don't want to waste plastic. I love the effects that it gives, but I am trying to be conscious of my plastic use. Now notice I'm not just putting the cling film on and letting it be any sort of texture. I am very deliberately moving that cling film to create lines that would go along that pastry dough. Because I want this to, even though I want it to be illustrative and fun, I still want a kind of realistic texture. And as long as that paint is wet, I can move that cling film as much as I want. Now, you do have to let it dry naturally. And here's the reveal. Lovely. And look at how the cling film pushed that wet paint to create a more jagged edge, a much more natural look. And now I'm just going in using my size 10 Princeton Neptune round brush. That is the only brush I am using for this entire piece. And I'm just going in right now with the burnt sienna. I have some paper towel on the side, so I'm trying to, anytime I pick up pigment, I go and I dab my brush on it to get any excess moisture off. Because this is a flaky croissant, I want that dry brush texture. And right now my brush is actually still a little too wet, but I'm just rolling with it. And once again, just like with the first wash, I am concentrating that goldeny burnt sienna. Look at how it gives that lovely natural brown red tone. It just gives that croissant that buttery glow. I really like croissants. They're so yummy, and I was pretty hungry when I was painting. So same idea as before, I'm just going to put that burnt sienna on the bottom and the top of the croissant because the croissant is rounded, and if the light is shining from the front, I'm just thinking of shadows. I want to suggest the form. And my brush is a little bit drier now, so I am getting some of those lovely jagged textures. And it's okay if the color looks a little strong. Watercolor dries a lot paler than when it goes down. So like right now, that burnt sienna I put down looks pretty red. When it dries, it does look a little more natural. I'm going in now with some burnt umber. I just felt like I needed a little more roasty, toasty color and to allow more areas to pop. So it can be a little scary going in with such a dark color, especially when things are already looking so good. But trust me, adding just a little bit of dark in the right places helps those lighter areas pop and have a greater three-dimensional form. So, I mean, as I paint, I know there's a bit of a glare from the light, but as I add the dark paint, doesn't the croissant look rounder and like that center part is popping out more in front of all of the other segments? And I'm back to being hungry. Oh man, I would love a bakery fresh croissant right now. I've picked up a little more burnt sienna. My brush is nice and dry now, so I am getting a fabulous dry brush texture. And when I paint with watercolor, I love these sort of texture marks. And so even though I've covered a lot of my cling film, that cling film texture set kind of the foundation for how the rest of this croissant goes. And because watercolor is transparent, it's a little hard to see right now because the camera's on, but like in real life, looking at the painting right now, those bits of texture from the cling film just give it this extra, just nice, crinkly, buttery edge. So anyway, there's the finished painting. Let me know what you think in the comments. And if there's anything you want to see me paint, please let me know because I am always looking for new subjects. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.